Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnerships with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber Internet Security Solutions and Voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson Attorneys at Law, utilizing 75 years of experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Indiana remained as red as ever after Tuesday night's elections, led by Republican Mike Braun's win atop the ticket as governor.
I know our state has 4 corners. I come from one of them, and I'm going to make sure that all of us as Hoosiers prosper.
Ahead, we talk with an expert about why many battleground states also turned red in the presidential race.
I feel like the future of work is changing. And in order for them to be prepared for the future, they need to be exposed to it now.
AI is growing fast and has already made its way into the classroom. I spoke with educators about how they're trying to get ahead of the curve.
And we visit with members of Indiana's 1967 Rose Bowl team to get their take on the Hoosiers' historic season this year. We'll have these stories plus the latest news from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. An unnamed Indiana University student has reported receiving a racist text referencing slavery, matching similar reports around the country. The Indiana University Police Department took a report from the student on Wednesday. The student said others received similar text messages. USA Today reported that black people in Georgia, Michigan, Virginia, Ohio, Alabama, North Carolina, and South Carolina have received racist text before or after Election Day. The text message stated the student was selected to pick cotton at a plantation. It also said, quote, "Our executive slaves will come get you in a brown van." The FBI said it was aware of the text and was in contact with the Department of Justice about them. Republicans won big across America Tuesday, taking back the White House and the Senate. Despite enthusiasm and strong fundraising by Indiana Democrats, the GOP also held on to its control of major offices and the State House. Ethan Sandwise joins us from the WTIU newsroom.
Hi, Joe. In addition to Donald Trump easily winning Indiana, Republicans in Indianapolis celebrated Senator Mike Braun becoming governor. After winning, Braun talked about further strengthening his party's hold on Indiana.
I can't wait to hit the ground running, taking this state to a place where they put us with Texas, Florida, Tennessee.
Republican Todd Rokita retained the Attorney General's seat, defeating Democrat Destiny Wells by almost 20%. Republican Congressman Jim Banks won Indiana's open Senate seat by the same margin over Democrat Valerie McRae.
We still have a fight to fight, and now we have an infrastructure of people we can fight with for a long time to come.
Democrats hoped reproductive rights and health care would help them tip the state, but exit polling by AP shows Hoosier voters were more motivated by other issues. 40% named the economy as their most important issue, followed by immigration with around 23%. Abortion and health care together counted for less than 20%.
The reality is that in the last 4 years, our buying power as Americans has dropped. There's a perception that we're not putting residents of the United States and, including Monroe County first.
Republicans also retained 7 of Indiana's congressional seats, including District 9, which covers Bloomington. Incumbent Aaron Houchin won there by 31 percentage points over Democratic challenger Timothy Peck. Despite heated contests in higher offices, most Democrats in Monroe County ran unopposed.
I feel great about the plan that the party put forward. I'm also warmed by the grassroots Democratic community that we have, activist organizations, advocacy groups that have worked very hard to reach their issue bases and to really mobilize that vote too.
Elections up ballot could have a huge impact on Monroe County. Braun is a proponent of school choice programs, which would divert money from public education to help families pay for private schooling. And Rokita has challenged the Monroe County Sheriff's Office on its policy not to jail undocumented immigrants charged for low-level crimes. Elected officials will assume their new offices in January. Reporting from the newsroom for Indiana Newsdesk, Ethan Sandwes.
Well, one race that still hasn't been called, but unofficial results for Monroe County are in and have Republican incumbent Dave Hall winning re-election in State House District 62 by just under 800 votes. His opponent, Democrat Thomas Horrocks, said in an emailed statement that his campaign is waiting to confirm vote totals, but that he has reached out to congratulate Hall on his victory. District 62 includes parts of Monroe County, all of Brown County, and parts of Jackson County. Hall won the seat in 2020 by 74 votes. You know, as Ethan mentioned, the GOP took back the presidency, control of the U.S. Senate, could retain the House. Joining us now for more on the election is Stephen Webster, an associate professor of political science at Indiana University, author of the book American Rage: How Anger Shapes Our Politics. Welcome back to the show. So nice to have you. You know, one of the things that really stood out was that 10 million fewer votes that were cast for the presidential nominee than in 2020. Why do you think that happened?
I think there's a lot of potential reasons. I think one is that this election is different from 2020 in that we're no longer in a pandemic. And so during the pandemic election, we made it quite easy to vote. Lots of people were able to vote by mail. We didn't have quite that luxury this time. I think it could be the nature of the campaigns, too. Different campaigns have different strategies for trying to target voters. And so I think we're going to have to wait to do some more analysis of the data to better understand why fewer people turned out in this election.
You know, with the GOP winning the White House, Senate, most likely the House, where do you see partisan divide in this country heading? I mean, is it going to get worse?
Probably so. I think what we're likely to see over the next 2 years in Washington is a pretty firm Republican grip on power. You'll see Democrats most likely in the Senate try to block Republican initiatives, but I think there's going to be a lot of partisan gamesmanship leading up to the midterm elections. And if you're hoping for a sort of cooling of tensions between Democrats and Republicans, I think you're likely to be disappointed.
So this election was said to be a referendum on democracy. So is this country at a crossroads?
You know, this is a really important question. This is certainly the case that Democrats wanted to make this an election about democracy. We know that lots of voters had other things on their minds, so things like inflation, the cost of living. And so it's unclear what voters were thinking about when they voted, but we do know that not everyone was concerned about this issue of democracy.
So what impact do you think this might see on universities and schools when we talk about promise to shutter the Department of Education and threats to liberal, quote unquote, universities?
Yeah, I think this is something that conservatives have pushed for a long time. This has been a goal of theirs for decades now, getting rid of the Department of Education. But one thing we know is that government agencies tend to be sticky. They tend to persist. And I think while it's certainly possible that Republicans could get rid of the Department of Education, I don't think it's probable. I think they're more likely to spend their political capital on other issues.
We just have a few seconds left. What are you going to look at these next couple of months? What are you watching for?
What I'm most interested in is who Donald Trump picks to be in his cabinet. There's lots of rumors about who might be in the cabinet, and so I think that's the most interesting development to watch between now and when Donald Trump takes office.
Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Artificial intelligence is starting to appear in K-12 classrooms. Isabella Vesperini joins us from Lakeview Elementary to tell us more about what that means.
Thanks, Joe. One teacher at Lakeview Elementary has already begun to integrate AI into her curriculum. She wants to give her 5th grade students an opportunity to learn how to use AI early on.
Today we're going to learn how AI was developed, created, how it is useful.
I really want to feel that I am doing what's best for kids, and I feel like the future of work is changing, and in order for them to be prepared for the future, they need to be exposed to it now.
Pablo gives her students the chance to play around with ChatGPT and ask it to do random things.
Typing in something like, write a letter to your favorite teacher that includes information about frogs and George Washington, because those are two of my favorite things. And they thought it was hysterical because it instantly came up with a letter and talked about George Washington and frogs.
She also gives lessons on what AI is and what it can do.
It was like really cool to see how it works and stuff, because before that I had no clue how it worked. And after that I knew like all about it.
Clara has also used AI in robotics club.
We have to program it and it has to learn stuff from us.
Pablo has also brought in a researcher who taught the kids how to organize data when tracking deer movement.
Researchers used to sit out in the environment or sit out in the wild and he explained how he spent hours upon hours upon hours, and that obviously wasn't good. So they created cameras and sensors and used all of that technology to collect the data instead.
Using AI to complete assignments, such as writing, is the obvious drawback of the technology in the classroom. But an IE professor has a different approach for AI pessimists.
Instead of saying we're trying to catch the cheating, is to try and say, how do we catch the learning? I've seen some really innovative ways, including teachers are asking students to turn in the transcript of how they talk back and forth with ChatGPT, so you can see what questions are the students asking.
Some teachers are concerned about not having time to teach kids how to use AI, let alone learn how to use it themselves. But Pablo hasn't had any issues experimenting with Google Gemini to help her create rubrics.
It's basically just makes your life easier.
A recent national survey from the Walton Family Foundation found that 56% of teachers have not received training on how to use AI chatbots, but would like to. The survey showed 32% of teachers are not using AI because of a lack of training.
The thing is, students are so good at figuring that out, whether it's just clicking a bunch of buttons because they're not worried about breaking something. That sometimes has a big element in it.
Once kids experiment on their own, it's easy for them to share the results and how they did it with others in the classroom.
The world is constantly changing. Technology is advancing and it's not going away.
The Walton Family Foundation study found that teachers who use AI save an average of 13 hours a week. The study also found that 59% of teachers who don't know how to use AI are favorable to the technology, while 72% of teachers that do know how to use AI are favorable to it.
If I tell you, hey, I know that you have to create a ton of new assessments for your classroom, let me show you how you can do that in ChatGPT and it'll only take 5 minutes of your time. So then once you start seeing those things, then you start seeing like, well, what else could I do?
An English teacher at Bloomington High School North has also used ChatGPT to make assignments easier for students to understand.
I'll sort of explain where we are in a unit and then say, okay, so here's what we've been doing so far. I'm kind of trying to figure out what would make logical sense to go to next, and then I'll ask it that.
Until recently, ChatGPT could only access information up to 2021 and would often produce inaccurate information. OpenAI recently announced in an X post last year that ChatGPT can now access information from any time on the internet. But Cooper Smith reminds his students that AI isn't flawless.
It's a great place to get ideas. It's a great place to get, feedback. It's a great place to try to get an understanding of something you're not quite getting from your teacher. But obviously, as you know, and we all know, that it can say some wrong things. It can do some crazy stuff.
Given how widespread AI is, Cooper Smith also doesn't think it's a good idea to keep students away from it. He prefers to address the issue in class and teach students how to properly use it as a tool.
Sometimes I actually am the one who is ultimately introducing them to AI, which feels a little bit like I'm opening Pandora's box. But again, my thing is like, okay, they're going to come around to it eventually.
Other students in Pablo's class last year also enjoyed learning about how AI can help them solve problems in new and different ways.
I feel like it will be really popular because there's already a new phone that came out and it has so much AI. It's kind of scary. I feel like sometimes AI, it's so cool but so scary how fast it can learn.
Schools like Lakeview Elementary and Bloomington North have gotten a head start, but NCCSC is still working on incorporating AI across the corporation. Reporting from Lakeview Elementary for Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk.
The IU football team is having a record-breaking year. I asked members of the 1967 football team how they feel about Coach Signetti and this year's season.
And a new Dollar General is planned for the Prairieton Township in Vigo County, but some residents question its need. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Today's the day.
You're home.
It's a celebration.
Here we go. No one can say I don't have accomplished daughters.
We need more fun in our family.
It's just like a real blessing.
Look at this spread.
That's good.
Your heart gets so full that you think it's gonna burst.
Fall in love with public media. WFIU WTIU Open House. Thursday, November 14th, 5 to 7 p.m. at the Radio TV Building, 1229 East 7th Street in Bloomington. Meet your favorite WFIU and WTIU personalities, take a tour of our broadcast facilities, and get an insider's look at the world of public broadcasting. Light hors d'oeuvres, desserts, and beverages will be provided. This event is free and open to the public. More information at WTIU.org/events.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. We're joined now by Emma Gladstone for more headlines from around the area. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Joe. Thank you. A new Dollar General being planned in Vigo County, and the community of Prairieton isn't happy. In the basement to the Prairieton United Methodist Church, which is next to the potential store site, about 40 people gathered Wednesday night to share their concerns with the developer and his attorney. The main complaint is there are already 2 Dollar Generals within a 4-mile radius.
There's other things that we could use. That land could be subdivided into residences. You know, we would much prefer to have homes and families. We need houses.
Those in attendance were disappointed to learn that the site developer was unable to answer many of their questions. The Vigo County Commissioners will meet on Tuesday to decide whether to rezone space for the potential store location. Indiana University's Kelley School of Business is touring the state with its annual feature cast, a 2025 economic outlook, and stopped Thursday at Ivy Tech in Bloomington. Panelists say the U.S. economy is returning to normal, and Indiana's economy is expected to do even better.
That is a testament to the next level strategy that we saw from the governor's office and from the General Assembly. They've been focused on that like a laser since Holcomb had come to office. And the data shows that our labor productivity grew 7.8%.
But they say President-elect Donald Trump's proposing widespread, significant tariffs could cost the state's manufacturing sector. And Bloomington's economy is expected to lag behind Indiana and the U.S. Powell says the city needs to grow the labor force, wages, and productivity while struggling to retain enough workers aged 18 to 44.
The labor force growth is just anemic. Bloomington cannot become a vibrant economy without dynamic talent.
Powell also said the city's population is expected to shrink. 3 Indiana school corporations asked voters to pass operating referendums on Election Day. Voters approved the Lake Station Community Schools referendum, but rejected referendums for Kokomo and Twin Lake School corporations. Lake Station had rejected a referendum last year, leading to the transportation cuts and forcing the schools to have 3 days of the week remote learning days. With the referendum, Lake Station will be able to resume in school learning 5 days a week. Griffey Lake will be closed for 2 weekends in November for a deer hunt. The lake will be off limits to hikers, fishermen, or boaters on the weekends of November 16th to the 17th and the 23rd to the 24th. The hunting weekends will not be open to the public. Only those who applied and were selected for permits will be able to hunt. Last year, White Buffalo, which managed the hunt, removed 33 deer. The USDA will begin bulk testing milk supplies in states where dairy cattle tested positive for HFN1 bird flu. Indiana is not one of them. But the disease was found in dairy cattle in nearby Michigan as well as 14 other states. Earlier this year, a rule requiring all interstate cattle transported over state lines to be tested for bird flu shows Indiana is still clean.
38% of the farms that have had this disease on it have moved cattle, and they've used trucks or trailers that they shared with other farms, and they weren't necessarily cleaned and disinfected in between.
Darrier Spears says the pasteurization process eliminates the disease entirely, so all dairy products on the shelf are safe to consume. Repairs to the roof of the West Baden Hotel have been completed nearly 18 months after a hailstorm damaged the historic property. French Lick Resorts CEO says it took longer than expected to finish repairs because of the complicated structure of the glass dome. Almost 1,000 pans of glass had to be removed. The repairs cost more than $4 million.
We didn't know what we were going to get into. Working around our guests, as well as the difficulty of, navigating the dome portion of the structure. And there was having to go back, when we did get a rain, were there any leaks?
And Joe, France says repairs to a few additional roofs are continuing, including one over the casino at the French Lick Springs Hotel.
It's a beautiful place. Have you been there?
Yeah, I have.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It's beautiful. I hope that these repairs get fixed soon enough.
Thank you so much. Well, Indiana University has been playing football since 1887 and has never had a better record. The Hoosiers are 9-0. Recalling the success of IU's 1967 team that went to the Rose Bowl. The players on that team are savoring this season after decades of often subpar results for the Hoosiers. Elise Perry reports.
The Hoosiers are 9-0, recalling the success of IU's 1967 team that went to the Rose Bowl. The players on that team are savoring this season after decades of often subpar results for the Hoosiers.
Eric Stolberg played receiver for the Hoosiers in 1967 and has been a season ticket holder for 40 years. He says his dedication to IU football is finally paying off.
I'm thrilled that when I read social media and they talk about football and they have Indiana's always in the mix and in the conversation, it makes me very proud, very happy, and frankly long overdue.
First-year head coach Curt Cignetti has overhauled the culture of IU football after a 3-9 season in 2023. Stolberg sees similarities between Cignetti and the 1967 head coach John Pont, describing both as intense and focused. Former offensive guard E.G. White said that while this year's team has dominated opponents, the 1967 team won games with last-minute heroics. White is 78 years old and enjoying the change in fortune for IU football.
I think you've got to have a sense of pride of what this team has been able to do. Nobody saw it coming except probably the coaching staff and the kids that are playing now.
Defensive tackle Doug Cruzan was team captain in 1967 and went on to win a Super Bowl with the Miami Dolphins. He lives in Indiana and follows IU football closely. Cruzan says he gets teary-eyed watching the team play.
I'm so happy for them. And at 78 years old, and what's that about, how many, 57 years ago or whatever it was, to be able to see it and be alive to see it. It's a great, great feeling.
Hoosier fans hope it isn't another 57 years before they see a season like this again. Reporting from Memorial Stadium for Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Elise Perry.
So how does 10-0 sound, Hoosier fans? With a win over Michigan at a sold-out Memorial Stadium Saturday afternoon, that's what the Indiana football team would be heading into its bye week. The Wolverines won the national championship last season, but are just 5-4 this season.
They're a good football team. Coming in here with a lot of tradition, a lot of history, a lot of pride, and that's part of the reason it's on, national TV.
The first college football playoff rankings came out this week, and Indiana, which has the second highest scoring offense in the nation, is ranked 8th. The top 12 teams make the playoffs.
I'll see the rankings, but the only thing that really matters is that you get the result on, when you play. And to do that, you got to keep the main thing, and eliminate the noise and the clutter, and stay focused on what's going to help you play your best on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday's game kicks off at 3:30 p.m. on CBS. After Saturday, IU has 2 more games left in the regular season at Ohio State and home to Purdue. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller-Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnerships with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber Internet Security Solutions and Voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson Attorneys at Law, utilizing 75 years of experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.